Welcome, everyone. You are listening to They Might Be Self-Aware. I am Hunter Powers, joined by...
Daniel Bishop. Hello, Hunter.
Hello, Daniel, fellow human. Good to see you again.
Beep boop. Good.
Beep boop.
Good to see you.
Today on the
fellow
show...
human.
We are discussing OpenAI's Sora. Is it stuck in the clouds while Meta's MovieGen, also released in this last week, is taking the spotlight?
It's got some magic tricks up its sleeves, like editing videos with a single text prompt, and we'll talk to you about that.
Meta's got a lot of tricks up their sleeve, including a new release for their smart glasses, but are they becoming too smart? And what happens when your sunglasses know more than you do?
I'll tell you what happens. Its privacy goes right out the window, but maybe privacy is passé. Let's discuss if we have any anonymity left and if it's even worth it.
And who's responsible when this AI goes rogue? The liability debate is heating up.
Well, to cool it down, California is saying no to world-ending AI. And we'll discuss that in the saga of SB 1047 as it continues.
The saga continues just as Wu-Tang said. Words of RZA, I believe. And it's all up next because you are listening to...
They might be self-aware.
You remember... a few episodes ago when I asked to borrow $150 billion.
Yeah, and I think it wasn't just like liquidity problems on my end. It was also I didn't want to.
You were being stingy if we just want to like bottom line it.
You
for
came
a
to
second.
me hat in hand.
I did.
And I refused you.
I feel like I was straightforward about the whole ordeal. Well, anyways, I wanted to purchase OpenAI. That was my plan. And today they announced that they're now worth $157 billion. So we would have been up $7 billion had you just dug a little bit deeper and wrote that check.
I've got an idea.
Oh, yeah.
To all of you listening to this podcast, they might be self-aware the brand is worth $1 billion. You each send us in, let's call it a cool $500 million each. And get more than 10x here. Is that fraud? If I was to say that, if OpenAI says now we're worth $7 billion more after just raising 6, so
6.6. That's why it was originally 6.
6.6 rounds up to 7, and they're saying they're worth $7 billion more from before they had that money. I don't think. Does the math just not?
Well, it's a multiple, so they get a multiple on that extra 0.6 billion, and apparently the multiple equates to 7 billion. Yeah. And I guess all off the potential of Sora. That's the bright future of OpenAI.
The Sora, which we've talked about multiple times in the months past, and OpenAI hasn't. They showed us this really cool thing and then kind of stopped.
And there's still...
That's not entirely true. They have sort of mentioned it every now and then. No, some Hollywood insiders have gotten access to it. Cool. When do I get to play with it?
Well, they've mentioned it's still really expensive to run.
I'll give them $50 to get one cool clip of a thing. Why not?
But there's so many competitors now, many that aren't that expensive to run. It also it just begs the question: is it just a bad implementation? Is it unoptimized, or are they just at capacity that they can't add anymore? I know they're building a bunch of data centers right now.
Restarting nuclear power plants and so on.
Apparently, they're pissing off Microsoft just a little bit because so part of their deal with Microsoft investing so heavily in them was that Microsoft was providing them with a ton of compute, but they more or less said, "Hey, Microsoft, you're not providing this compute fast enough, so we're going to go out and we're going to give money to your competitors to purchase more GPUs so that we can run it at even a bigger loss." Such is life.
It's a bold strategy, and I mean, I like O1 Mini. I like the O1 Preview. I like all of the most.
So I'll use O1 Preview, but I don't know when I'm supposed to use O1 Mini. Give me your
O1
criteria.
Minis where you'd be using any of their other models previously. That I think that's supposed to be like it's top of the line, except for the really, really top of the line one.
Okay, so it's the 4.0 replacement. I
think so.
I should think about it like, hey, and does it have the similar limits? Because I hit my whatever it is 25 messages a day limit on the O1 preview.
Yeah, just what's highest up on the list of the drop down, I think, is you just start working your way down that.
Okay.
Yeah. I still think that OpenAI is best or maybe best, depending on certain use cases, but I don't think it's all of them. And many of those use cases are, what if I wanted to have my own thing that could run locally? We're starting to see teensy little models that can fit like onto people's phones semi-reasonably. I really think there is this two-tiered system of I want the bigger thing that lives in the cloud, and I want the smaller thing that I can run locally myself. And there is a difference between those, just in terms of like broadly what you're going to do with them. You could do the very same things with most of them. If you're just chatting with a chatbot, anyone can do that with any of these different implementations. But like, oh, I want an air-gapped system that I'm going to be working on classified, whatever. Okay, cool. You're going to download a local code model.
Well, speaking of Sora and the opposite of an air-gapped system, I don't know if you saw Meta announced their version of Sora, which I think they just call MovieGen.
Yeah, MovieGen. You're going to gen movies with it.
I gen movies. It's gen. You can't play with it yet. They showed some videos. The videos look good.
Speaking of Sora, you can't play with it yet, right?
The one cool feature that they showcase, and they actually have enabled for images now, is you can edit the videos. You can say, hey, change the color of the sweatshirt to green and actually make it a parka and it's snowing. And at least in their demo videos, it happens pretty quickly and pretty impressively.
Yeah, this capability when it comes to image generation and editing has existed for a little while now. A little, in varying forms and quality levels. But, right, the MovieGen site mentions that there's edit video with text, and I'm looking at it right now. There's an original video of a guy like doing some stretches and warm-ups, and then one of them is change the background to an outdoor stadium. And I'm looking at it. If I didn't see the original video, 100% would believe that that was an actual video of that guy at a stadium. It also changed the color of his shirt for fun while it's at it. Or change the sky to the northern lights. It's a little psychedelic for the actual northern lights, but it pretty much gets it. Add fire sparklers to his hands. Yeah, granted, his hands are kind of out, so it doesn't look like he's grasping something, but it does a very convincing job with that. There's a few other videos. There's just some guy running in the desert. Add blue pom-poms to his hands, and it does. He's got some pom-poms. Replace the running clothes with an inflatable dinosaur costume. I'm not going to say 100% believably, but nearly believably completely replaces the video of some guy running with like one of those inflatable dinosaur costumes of that running in the desert, and it all looks basically the same otherwise. Or turn it into a cactus-filled desert. That looks extremely realistic. That, I think, is something that more people would use than just make videos. I find that just make pictures, just make videos. Like I've tried some of these different services, Runway being one of the more well-known ones. There's local versions as well that are starting to get better at a pretty decent clip. Those are very, very cool. I love generating just like, I thought of something. Please do that. But having a picture and saying, change the background, give this person a green dress instead of a blue dress, add a watermelon into this guy's under his arm, whatever it ends up being. That, I think, is something that if Facebook says, hey, upload your photos to our ever-growing library and you'll get access to this cool tool that lets you just add and change in whatever stuff with natural language, everybody would use that.
I wonder if they will open source that model as they've open sourced many of their other models. I don't think they've open sourced their current image gen models, which might suggest that they wouldn't open source their MovieGen, but
right. Well, there's enough competition in the paid or not even available space when it comes to video right now. But for image generation, and editing, there's enough free, fairly easy to use and get set up with things that I think for image generation and for text generation, you kind of have to open source it and say, no, we made this really good thing and you should use it because it's ours, and that gets you into their ecosystem. For video, I think this might be giving too much of the secret sauce away if they were to open source it.
Yeah.
Like, there is still a bit of a moat here. For text gen, for image gen, the moats are gone. It's, people are coming up with new technologies, reusing a lot of the same sorts of data inputs, and they can make a new one. For video, not everybody has that yet.
One of Meta's flagship AI products is their sunglasses that they do in collaboration with Ray-Ban, where you get their AI assistant in your head and they're able to do image recognition. They can process the video feed coming off of the glasses. I have a pair. I like them. I mean, they're good sunglasses, but they're good sunglasses because they're Ray-Ban sunglasses. I don't honestly use the AI features all that much, but I do think they're pretty cool. They were in the news this week. There were two Harvard students where Zuck attended for a short period of time, and they put together a project which called Eye X-ray, where as they were walking around Boston and the neighbor and the Harvard campus, it would perform facial recognition on the people that it saw, and then use a number of existing online tools and databases to identify the people, bring up other photographs of them, bring up their voter registration information and their addresses.
Right. Stuff that is publicly available if you know where to look, but sort of bringing all of this together into one cohesive, utterly transparent, literally transparent for the person looking through the lenses. Like, it happens in the background automatically.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an Orwellian nightmare, right? Like, forget the average person using that. What if that's, every cop on every street corner, let alone just taking that same software and putting it to CCTVs or otherwise? That's the end of privacy, sort of, in general.
So they have a video of them going around and detecting the information. And for the record, the information that they get comes to their phone. It doesn't. The Meta Ray-Ban glasses don't have any concept of smart displays, but they could potentially send a message to your ears, some audio. But anyways, it just goes to your phone where they display the information, and they correctly identify a number of people, and they'll like go up to random people on the street and say, Are you Daniel Bishop? Yes, yeah, I saw your podcast. And of course, they have no idea who these people are. And the people are kind of flattered by it. And I'm watching this, I was like, man, I want this. I want to know who all the people are and be able to have, interesting conversations. And this has been one of a
little score floating over everyone's head that says how famous they are, so you know that you should approach them and be like, oh, it says on my glasses that you were once a background extra on the TV show Scrubs. That's cool. Tell me about it. It
is cool. And I mean, I do think it is a
conversation
tool
starter that
could allow for deeper connections with humans, with fellow humans. Hey, fellow human, you were on Scrubs in 1990. When was Scrubs, like late 90s or early 2000s?
I feel like early 2000s.
Okay, early 2000s. Weren't you in that scene on Scrubs? So yeah, so I was struck by like, oh, I want this thing.
Early 2000s.
Oh, this thing is just a gross invasion of privacy. One person that they spoke to was a bit of a political activist, and they spoke to him they weren't coming at it from a controversial angle. I just noted the content that they were sharing. Oh, you're participating in, you're advocating for these things, and they were saying, oh yeah, I'm a big fan of this stuff. But the other thing that I was just struck by is they didn't really do anything new. They just, wired a few things together that aren't typically wired together for us private citizens. But
we can sort of imply that something vaguely like this has
it 100% exists. Yeah. And it's probably 1,000 times better than what they hacked together, one Friday night over a couple of beers.
Maybe.
And what they hacked together,
there's so much interest in this. Like, even if you had some shadowy organization who worked on a system like this and made it available to law enforcement or malicious actors or otherwise, there's so many people interested in this space that enough is being done sort of related to this that I think the overall rate of improvement in these kinds of tools is going to be faster than what a couple of private enterprises would have come up with. To go back to like image generation, you've got your stability AIs and so on that came out with these incredible new tools, and everybody sort of piled onto it. Same thing with text generation. We've got, from the early days of BERT transformer-based models and attention is all you need type papers, and then so many other papers of blank is all you need. Then we get into the real large language models and GPT 3.5 and so on. And look at what has happened to this industry. So many people are interested in it, so much attention, so many people who are just spinning up cool little new tools themselves, exactly like you're describing. The people who made these AR glasses, recording everybody and just looking up information based off of that.
Yeah.
Enough people are doing that I think we're going to accelerate toward the hellish dystopian future. And also, do not get me wrong, while I'm saying that this is a bad thing, because it objectively is, I also want it. I want the bad thing.
Yes.
I
That's
want
the
the bad
problem.
thing
That is
because
the problem.
I'm terrible at remembering people's names, and I want to wear glasses with a little thing, or it gives me like subtitles for real life. I saw the movie Click with, what was that, Adam Sandler?
That's Adam Sandler, yes.
Yeah, and like
Bed Bath and Beyond.
Yeah, right. There were, some poignant little things about making sure.
By the way, it is a good movie, isn't it?
That. Yeah, it's a good movie.
It's actually a good movie.
I took away the wrong thing from that movie, which was, I want the real life subtitles. Wow, I want that. That's the thing that I want.
Well, aren't you getting that with your Plaid or whatever? They're just delayed subtitles?
Well, right. And you could talk about how, like, in German, if you're going to have more than two verbs, they all start to pile up at the end sentence. So you couldn't really get in truly real time. Meh. The point being, I want a little floating name tag over people's heads.
Yes.
Or like, hey, their birthday was last week and you forgot. I would love to have that. God, I'd love to have that. But by me being able to have that, that means that also, and I'm not a bank robber with multiple warrants out for my arrest or something, but what if it's I participated in a rally and then all of a sudden, whatever political organization that I'm affiliated with is on the naughty list, and then you get nabbed by the police for
and I think
having
there's
been associating with the wrong people. Or
fundamental
whatever.
question of do you have any? Is there any implied privacy anymore? And should you? I mean, I feel like I want that. I want there to be some implied privacy. I want to be some concept of yourself, and also like we change over time, right? Like you're not the same person you were when you were 12, when you were 20. And you should have the right to evolve. You aren't what you were at all of those times, but the moment we reveal your complete history and identify the one moment where, this bothered me, so now I'm going to judge you forever for this one thing, and it just becomes public, and everyone sees it because they all see it on their heads-up display. They're all walking around with their Meta Ray bands.
I am not a lawyer. I'm not a legal expert, but I do know how to read.
You play one on TV?
Wikipedia. Yeah, exactly. I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night. Those commercials, man. As I understand it, which could be entirely wrong, get in the comments and tell us. I don't think the United States has any actual legal protection for any sort of like protection of privacy. What is privacy under what circumstances? I know I've seen plenty of stuff that says like you don't have a expectation of privacy in public, and so that's why you're allowed to like film the police, for example. I've heard then that if you're like indoors you can't, but I haven't actually seen anything that says legally speaking you are allowed to expect privacy under these sort of circumstances. Maybe,
but there are harassment laws.
Sure.
And I think
so using the Ray-Ban glasses to harass someone and be like, I saw you post on this forum a stupid thing once. How dare you?
When do the tools become terror? At what point does the innovation cross the line into invasion? But I was reminded
that's
of the...
That's not the tool. That's the person. And I realize I'm getting close to sort of the gun debate at this point. But if you're going to harass someone or assault someone or this someone or that someone, it's a person deciding that they're going to go harass. It could be
AI doesn't invade people's privacy. People invade people's privacy.
The AI is probably
Oh,
going to
boy.
help make it a lot easier, and the tooling will, but the AI isn't the thing with agencies saying, I'm going to go bully that person. It's you deciding that you're going to go bully somebody.
Except, and I'm going to quote the great Dr. Ian Malcolm here, who once said, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. And I sometimes wonder, are we the scientists here?
About me. But other people certainly are. And yes, they are forging ahead way without a concern for whether or not they should.
The separate from this, but like highly, highly related, Meta also confirmed that they do use every image that, and apparently you agree to this when you agree to the TOS that I read in great depth when I set up my Ray-Ban sunglasses. They do analyze every image that you process through it, and it's used as part of their training set.
Why wouldn't it be? Yeah.
So, not only are you being watched, but your data is being fed back into the machine to make it even smarter and just, continue invading your privacy.
So just be careful when you're standing in front of the full-length mirror and having it tell you what your BMI is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mirror, mirror on the wall. But who owns who owns reality when AI is watching it?
Who owns reality when AI is watching it? I don't know how to answer that question.
Well, I mean, and this question almost answers itself. But
nobody owns reality. I'm going to say that.
I think that's a debate that's yet to be settled. But
what I'm a little more curious about, and I don't think that Facebook is going to go under, at least not anytime soon. Meta, excuse me. What I'm concerned about is what happens if one of these companies that has been pulling in lots of information from a ton of people does go under. So it hasn't happened yet, but I've seen multiple things in the news that maybe 23andMe, the folks you
all your DNA,
the thing, and
going
they'll
to
tell
China.
you who you're related to. Yeah, it's entirely possible that they might just go under. And what happens to all of that genetic data whenever they go away? I don't think it's going to be deleted. I think it's going to be sold to the highest bidder. Why wouldn't it be? And that doesn't instill a tremendous amount of confidence in me that that's going to be used for good and the betterment of society. So imagine you've been recording your entire life, you and 5 million other people with the special glasses, 50 million, 500 million other people, and then Facebook goes belly up for whatever reason, and a gazillion hours with a lot of compromising images and video and audio are up for sale, or it gets parted out into other companies, or this is or that's, or gets hacked. Everyone's getting hacked these days. Someone hacked the Internet Archive of all places.
I saw this.
I don't know why you would, but
did you do a 23andMe? Have you done one of those?
I did, and I'm starting to regret it.
Now, what is the actual concern about your DNA potentially being publicly available?
Well, pre-existing conditions as a thing in the U.S. sort of healthcare system having been a hot button topic as it relates to being able to have insurance not very long ago, and maybe not necessarily enshrined forever, is a thing. What about genetic predisposition towards certain diseases or whatever?
Proclivities, yeah.
Yeah,
Random proclivities.
Sure. What if that kept you from getting health insurance or made it way more expensive? That doesn't feel fair, even if it is possibly, if you really look at it from a truly altruistic perspective. It's just the numbers, right? The numbers don't lie. This person should spend more. I don't think that that's fair to people. You should be able to get insurance regardless of what hand you were dealt originally. That's for insurance, though. What if things take a turn politically and all of a sudden all the people with more than X% of Y background start getting hunted down? In our own history, multiple times for multiple different ethnic groups, it hasn't worked out great in the United States for certain types of people. What if that happens again? And now you've got genetic data that says, oh, you're 14% Irish. All of a sudden the Irish are back in the crosshairs, or whatever it ends up being. That's not great.
Did you see another film, Gattaca, It's in like a late 90s. Ethan Hawke starred in it.
I didn't, but I'm familiar with it sort of in general.
It's another good movie. Right after you watch Click, go watch Gattaca for something
This has
completely
been Movie
different.
Club with They Might Be Self-Aware.
But the premise of the film is you have to be geoengineered in order to exist in this new form of society where they remove lots of the limitations of most humans. So you don't get you're healthier, you're smarter, you don't have any of the diseases or genetic disabilities, and if you don't have this genetic engineering, then you're sort of kept out of the upper echelons of society.
Your genes are inferior, and I feel like we've heard that kind of thing before.
Okay, so if your DNA was
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's
kind of the point that they, get at with the movie, as I understand it.
So I never did any of the testing. My DNA shall not be sold to the highest bidder. But I felt like there's very little good that could come out of this. And you see like the random celebrities that go on the show and they're like, oh yes, and your great 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 uncle was a slave owner and therefore you should be canceled. She's like, I'm good. I'll just be me as I exist today. What my great 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 uncle may or may not have done, we're just gonna like leave out of the conversation.
It's hard enough with today's digital record of almost everything to not have some embarrassing stuff in your past. You go far enough back, someone's going to have done a bad thing to someone or something.
There have been, you were talking about, potentially using your DNA to determine medical ailments or, again, proclivities that you might end up getting involved with that could lead to discrimination.
Being allowed to vote or being allowed to procreate.
But
eugenics.
There are examples that have been in the news of people doing the same thing just from pictures, determining.
Sure, allegedly it's a 70% accurate of your sexual orientation or of your ethnic makeup or of your this or of your that. And I've seen, sometimes somebody's getting accused of something and it's either not true or just a baseless claim. Even if these things were 99% accurate, just like with, for example, the death penalty, depending on how anyone here might be listening or watching and where you stand on that, do you really want an algorithm that isn't going to be basically 100% accurate to say, you're X and so Y should happen to you? I don't want the big AI sorting machine to just throw me into prison or a wood chipper or the bad ward of a hospital where you don't get as good of care because of how I look.
Well, the thing that we're still trying to figure out, and no one seems to know in these AI systems, is where the liability, where the liability exists. Right now, we're trying to say there is no liability. That's our current state. The people that develop the AI, they have no liability. The companies that's using the AI, they have no liability. And you, as the end user consuming this AI, it's all on you to figure out use the parts that your own good judgment decides to use, because we're not standing behind any of this.
It's the old provided for entertainment purposes only defense.
Right. And this is what leads to, this can lead to that terror idea. We never stopped to ask whether we should, we just did it because to see if we could. I wonder if I can train a model to look at pictures and determine some controversial characteristic of it without considering the ramifications of any of this. And there's a movement that is, getting an ounce of steam, not more than an ounce, but an ounce of steam, suggesting that the liability has to lie in the engineers, not even the company, the engineers that are creating these models. And the argument is that is where the humanity part starts. At some point, there's got to be some humanity, some human deciding, should we do this or should we not do this?
I'll tell you right now, the engineers are being prodded by the product managers and the folks farther up the chain to release the damn thing already. What do you mean it's been another quarter and there isn't a new model yet?
100%? I do
think that the gist of somebody has to be held responsible from the people who make the AI program, whatever it is, algorithm, whoever is the progenitors of that. And I don't mean just one ML engineer somewhere. I mean the company, and not just the company, but the people in it. I do think there has to be some sort of liability. But on the other hand, is a parent responsible for the things that their kid says and does?
To a degree.
I mean, again, we're not legal experts, but like, to what degree? If
It
depends. If you as a grown adult go say some really
No, I'm an adult.
heinous stuff out in a public space,
Oh, so like last Thursday.
are your parents going to be held responsible for the things that you said? I don't think they can.
Not legally, but socially to some degree they might still. And then, yeah, when you are a child, they are held to some degree of legal liability in that situation.
Okay, so if we count AI as a human child at that point, then sure, you could have some sort of legal liabilities attached to it. The point here being, I think through this, whether or not we could or should, we're going to forge ahead anyways, I think we're going to see a need, by virtue of exposure to more people of stuff that goes awry, that we do have to have some privacy laws put into place. It's going to be too little too late, but it's not going to be nothing, which is what we currently have. And
we almost
we're
had
a reactionary species, right? We're not going to put these things in place given that maybe AI might be able to do it someday. We're going to wait until a bunch of people get in a lot of weird trouble and there's a big public uproar about someone who shouldn't have had a thing done to them because of why automatically generated content. And then we get the privacy laws.
We almost had our first AI law in place in California. That was the SB 1047, and I read the entire bill. It basically only says that you can't build an AI that is going to destroy the world. And it really is on like that level. No destroying of the entire world. And
That's kind of vague.
And well, the governor vetoed it. And he's like, no, we aren't ready for this. We're going to leave destroying the world on the table for now. That's not AI developers. You haven't gone too far.
Surely it's not that was the reason. Surely it's that it was not specific. Yeah, it was too broad. Of like, how could you possibly say this one is or this one is not?
Right. As a law that's too broad, potentially it's unenforceable. That's the governor's. Of course, his legislature disagreed because they passed it.
Sometimes you got to be seen trying to do a thing.
The counter on that is because OpenAI has a big presence in California, and they were definitely the company that's going to be impacted the most behind this because there's lots of regulations that surrounded when you're training these monstrous models that Newsom's like, man, I'd rather keep OpenAI happy for now. And this is too broad and kind of silly anyways, so I'll veto it. And that's all great until the AI becomes self-aware, at which point, game over. Who needs laws?
The AI? Us?
Not us, no.
Not
we exist outside of the law. I'm trying to, what's the I am the law. Is that the
yeah.
Judge Dredd or something?
Yeah. Sylvester Stallone, right?
Yes. Because you have been listening to They Might Be Self-Aware, your number one themed podcast dealing with issues just like this. Like and subscribe, because we will be back with even more, and that's the only way that you are going to know. Find us wherever you enjoy this type of content, whether it be on the YouTubes, in Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or pretty much any podcast player. Hit that search button, type in They Might Be Self-Aware. You will find us. Until next time.
They might be self-aware.